Hello and welcome back to the Matt Stone Show, formerly known as Accelerate with Matt Stone. I am so delighted that you're listening today, and if you've been a subscriber in the past, thank you for maintaining that subscription wherever you're listening. We're really, really grateful. You know, it's been since November of 2022 that I think I posted the last episode, and I've been waiting for this day to come. I knew that a new thing would rise when I had more clarity about the strategic direction I was headed in a number of different directions. That day has come. So first, I want to give you a big announcement that this podcast, we're going to be hosting the podcast on a new platform. So it's moving from Podbean to Substack. My Substack channel is mattstone.substack.com, mattstone.substack.com. So by May 1st, 2024, the podcast will be hosted from Substack. If you're listening on Apple and some other streaming services, probably doesn't really make any difference as far as the actual stream goes. If you're on Podbean, it will make a difference because you're not going to see new episodes posted there, okay? And the focus is really going to be for helping new managers. That's what my Substack is all about. So this podcast is going to be part of a bigger media package and support to help new managers with interpersonal relationships and communication, with feedback skills, with just self-doubt, the self-talk issues, all the things that go into success or failure when you're very first responsible for, other people. And it's a fraught time, very high failure rate. And I'm really looking forward to being of service to that community globally. Okay. So join me on Substack if that's a topic that's of interest to you. What you're going to listen to next is a clip from a longer conversation that I had with an emotional intelligence executive coach. His name is Jamelle Lindo. He explains what is emotional intelligence, or EQ, why it's so important, in fact, critical to leadership. Knowing yourself, being able to manage yourself, that includes managing your emotions. We talk about challenges facing new managers, managing up and managing down. And a little bit, we start touching on the significance of assertiveness in delivering effective feedback and how EQ plays into that. So that's just a little bit of what we talked about. The longer conversation's 45 minutes. And by May 1st, when we migrate the podcast to that new host, you'll be able to listen to the entire conversation at Substack, where it'll be available. We'll continue to post clips to the feed, okay? So I hope that's helpful. Also, one more thing before we get into the conversation. If you stick around to the very end, you'll get a preview of the new theme music for the podcast. So listen to the end, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I do, and I hope you enjoy the conversation as much as I do. I hope you get value from it. We'll see you at Substack. In the meantime, enjoy Jamelle Lindo on emotional intelligence. Jamelle is an emotional intelligence executive coach. He's also an international keynote speaker with over 15 years of diverse learning and development experience in the corporate space. He's worked with thousands of professionals across the globe to help them level up through the practical application of emotional intelligence. Jamelle is an official member of the Forbes Coaches Council, which is an invite-only organization for successful business coaches. And he's published various thought leadership articles on Forbes.com and elsewhere. Jamelle's driven by his belief that workplaces are fertile grounds for cultivating human potential and excellence, and that emotionally intelligent leadership is the water that grows greatness in people. And I certainly could not agree more. So that's Jamelle. Couldn't think of a better person to talk to. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to have this conversation. I know with you and me, it's going to be an absolutely great time. So thank you.
So as we get started, give us a little bit more off the cuff introduction. And in particular, why did you get into the EQ business in the first place?
There's so much there, Matt. So let's start with I do, because I think sometimes this idea of emotional intelligence can be a little bit confusing. It can be a little bit pie in the sky. So I like to bring it down and ground it a little bit. So what is emotional intelligence? Basically, it's people skills. You're a person, I'm a person. How do we deal with and manage that day to day? If we get a little bit more specific, it's a host of skills that refer to how we deal with and manage ourselves and our relationships. These are skills like assertiveness, empathy, stress tolerance, self-awareness and impulse control, flexibility. The list goes on. And I say skill because these are things that we can actually build and cultivate. It's not a personality trait. Think of it more like learning a new language. Think of it more like learning how to play a new instrument. These are things that we can actually get better at. So what do I do and how do I come into all of this? So I'm an emotional intelligence executive coach, as you mentioned, and I help people develop and build these skills. I normally will work with organizations in one of three ways, sometimes two of the three, sometimes all three. But number one is through keynote presentations. So that's me coming in to say, here's what emotional intelligence is. Here's why it matters. And here's what we can actually do to start that journey, the 60-minute session. I also do workshops, which is the same thing, but a little bit longer for smaller groups, more intimate. We get into role plays, case studies, etc. And then the last and maybe even most exciting way that I work with leaders is through EQ coaching. And we start with assessing their EQ using an emotional intelligence assessment tool. And then I'll meet with them for 60 minutes, twice a month for either a 6 or 12 month stint to help them really hone in and grow one or two areas tops in emotional intelligence. Now, you asked me another question, which is going to take me down an entirely different path, which is, why did you get into this? And a lot of people ask me that, but I want to pause first to think and make sure that I've clarified what I do before I go down that path.
I'm curious. You said in your bio, it's like over 15 years and you're a young man. So like you were really young when you started this. And I'm wondering what things surprised you about EQ.
Well, I started EQ development in the womb, and I got a nice head start, right? People do the numbers and they look at my face, they're like, this doesn't make any sense. So I started really young in the womb. So for me, I didn't start with the intention to do.
Let's zero in on some of the things that a new manager is maybe having to do for the first time, or they've done it before, but not in this role, which is different. Now they're above people that maybe they were equal to in terms of the hierarchy before. So now they're like, my friend is now my direct report, right? That's mentally how it goes. And now I'm sandwiched between my boss and the people who report to me. So thinking about some of the scenarios that are very common in that situation. For the first time, I'm needing to manage up and manage down, right? Tell me about that. So it's different, right? I can't tell everybody who is below me in the hierarchy. I don't mean in value as a human being, but in terms of the hierarchy, they're below me in the chart. I can't tell them everything now. There's certain things I actually have to keep confidential, for example, sensitive HR information, things like that. And that can be a really uncomfortable place to be. And then going up, managing up, I've got my boss to deal with. So help us like land the plane on these different scenarios, starting with that one, managing up versus managing down and EQ. How is EQ, the practice of EQ and development of EQ, how is that going to help me do that better?
Let's really ground this. Let's start with managing down. So now, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, you have all of these direct reports, some of which might have been really close friends of yours. Your responsibility now shifts because you're responsible for their performance. And it can be challenging because sometimes what you realize in those moments is that these people are great friends, but actually terrible employees. What does that mean? Well, it means, number one, you've really got to learn how to deliver tough feedback to everyone, including those who used to be friends of yours. So if you're observing a behavior or you have a KPI, key performance indicator that needs to shift, you now need to deliver that message in an effective way so that it can be received and the behavior or the performance can be changed. A key EQ skill in making that happen is assertiveness. Assertiveness deals with your ability to be able to say what needs to be said, deliver the tough and challenging message, oftentimes tough and challenging message, but to do it in a constructive instead of destructive way, and to be clear and direct without being aggressive. That's what assertiveness is. And so we have to have that skill if we want to be able to deliver feedback that truly makes a positive difference. That's just one example. We also need.
Thanks again for listening. I hope you enjoyed the first 6 minutes of my conversation with Jamelle. For the entire conversation, join me at mattstone.substack.com on May 1st. We'll see you in the next episode. Bye-bye for now.